Hello, I'm in Inwood Hill Park again in Upper Manhattan. I've made videos from here before, so if you watch my videos, you've probably seen me here talking here before. I haven't been in this particular spot recording before, but yeah, I did the Mel Lyman stuff was all done in here, yeah, at a different place over there. But I thought I'd walk up this way and try this. So, yeah, I have a book, a novel, a new novel called The Unwanted by Boris Fishman. Now, this one is about people that have to leave their country, immigrants, people trying to get into the United States, people refugees. I was hoping, in light of what's been going on the last couple of years, that it would be more like, all the people forced out of South America places, Central America places, and, the people, Cuba, all the Venezuela, all these people who are fleeing. What they're fleeing is not their horrible regimes, but the reaction of the USA to their horrible regimes, and like putting sanctions on them for 60 years and they can't get anything and they can't work, and all this kind of crap that the USA does and makes these countries unlivable, and then they all come shooting into the United States. And so now then the demagogues use them like Trump is using them to advance himself. So whatever. But it's not about that. It's not about those type of people. It is in fact about a more Eurocentric kind of idea. Boris Fishman himself, I did look it up a little bit, and Boris Fishman, Mr. Fishman, is actually an immigrant himself. He came, I don't remember how old he was, 50 something. Anyway, he arrived from the Soviet Union in 1988, so at age 9. And that sort of corresponds with what goes on in the book, because there's a 9-year-old girl, though, in the book, and that was a problem for me as well. So anyway, Mr. Fishman, his story is more about, coming from this sort of from the Soviet Union, which the USA didn't like, whatever, blah blah blah, and certain sorts of anti-Semitism he was running into in Belarus. As we know, these countries around there are quite have a history of virulent anti-Semitism, as in like Germany and Poland and presumably Belarus, where this guy Boris Fishman came from. Anyway, he wrote these novels in the United States now. So what goes on here is nothing is really stated flat out. So we're with this family, George, Susanna, and Dina. Dina is a girl who was 9 years old. So George is in minority sect. The problems back home are geared in this sort of like, there's minority sect and there's dominant sect, and the dominant sect gives shit to the minority sect, and there's a sect, and there's the government, and there's rebels going on, and it's produces a kind of complicated situation. And the father, George, is actually a professor of poetry at a university, and he's allowed to, he's minority sect, but he's still allowed to carry this position for some reason. So later on, we get all this stuff about the father and so forth, and what goes on with him, and why he was still at the university, and what he was doing, and whether he was a collaborator with the government or not, and or whether he turned in the rebels. All these things are involved in this plot, which is pretty complicated. um, maybe a little bit overly plotted and a little bit too much action in a way, because well, I liked the first part of it pretty well. It was like, okay, they're trying to get out of their country and going off in a raft, some sort of little boat from their country off to some island where there's a camp for people who are in between, a holding camp for people who are trying to emigrate to the West. So they go to that place, and a lot of the plot takes place there. And Susanna, the mother, is kind of slipping. I think her mother was in had mental issues. So once again, in this book, as well as some other books I've been reading recently, was actually uh, in the Simon Brett cluttering book. There was a plot line where somebody mother was insane, or and could that be transferred to the children? Well, so Susanna's mother was insane and taken off somewhere, and so Susanna actually, the characters are kind of sketchy in a way, and although sort of filled out, but sort of not. And anyway, Susanna gets into kind of bingy eating, so she's like she sort of gets a job at the camp kitchen, a volunteer job, and then starts hoarding some of the food and brings it back to their tent and eats it. And anyway, they get separated from that, and ultimately it jumps to 14 years later, where we see what has happened to Dina and her mother, Susanna. But that's the problem with this, is that these people are all kind of the elite of the immigrants. They're not like people who are like kicked off the scrabble of trying to make a living out of some desert land somewhere and kicked off because of some corporation or some sort of something or other like that. They're kind of very comfortable where they are, and so it was kind of this weird political maneuvering that they had to leave, and maybe they should have left earlier, that kind of a thing. So yeah, the reason they are the elite is that like they end up knowing the guy is going to be the new leader of their former country. So it's all like they're in the center or the peripheral, at least part of this big plot going on with this international relations and what's going on in this particular unnamed ever country. But the part that really, kind of about halfway through that kind of like, I don't know, was how Dina became, sort of disturbingly precocious. Once again, this is a 9-year-old girl, and they have an intake thing where they have to, testify as to why they are eligible to be, to come in as victims of the former regime and move into one of these Western countries, Canada or the U.S. And she makes up this big story about something that happened to her hand, and to blame the regime in a way, the schooling, and so it just sort of at the spur of the moment comes up with this story, and okay. That was all right, but then later on, she needs money and ends up doing this some kind of thing with her body and getting money from her body with men. And at that point, I was like thinking back. I was, wait, have we been given information to tell us that she's been groomed to this kind of activity, or are we to imagine that just this 9-year-old girl is capable of coming up with this scheme on her own, and so the feminist in me rebelled at that turn of the character, and I was kind of I don't know, kind of lost after that, and she puts her in really very dramatic scenes, with blood and stuff going on and chases, and it was just I felt it was a little over the top, and maybe it was for trying to get the movie option for the novel or something. I don't know. So anyway, I guess I'm pretty much done with that. I was thinking of hoping to write a song. I'm going to write a great song later today, inspired by this book called Home. So coming your way is a really fantastic new Steve Carter song that might be covered by Jolly Ramey about home. It's not written yet, but it's coming. I'm trying to be positive about these things. So yeah, I think I'm probably going to maybe start talking a little more personally about my feelings about things on my little podcast here, and see if I can, do more of a personal bio. I have stories to tell, you see, and feelings to express, and since I'm not really writing them down, I kind of feel free to sort of dump them here, and hoping they'll go viral. So anyway, The Unwanted, didn't love it, so, but you might, so I'll speak with you soon. Oh, I have Propaganda is coming to the library for me, a new book about the police and the media. So that should be good. I'm quite interested in reading that, another nonfiction.